Welcome back to Nothing But Football, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are doing well at home. We start the episode off by giving our thoughts and prayers and everything to Diogo Jota's family after the news coming out of Madrid this morning. It's awful news, and we really are thinking of them and everybody affected by it. Today we're going to be looking, guys, at players and their what they need to do, I think, next season for them, whether they should be staying at their clubs, whether they should be looking elsewhere, whether clubs should also be looking to move them on as well. Joining me, Michael McCubbin and Ben Bowman. So I think, without further ado, it's probably worth starting off with one of the most talked about players in terms of a move this summer, Marcus Rashford, Mikey. Yeah. What do you think of the Rashford situation?
It's a difficult one at this point because it feels like there's not really, there's not really a club out there that either want him or he wants to go to. Barcelona, of course, very much turned their attention to Nico Williams. He's always been their number one target. Rashford clearly wants the Barcelona move above all else. He's got massive wages, so I kind of feel like a bit of a broken clock at this point. It just feels like it's going to be more difficult to shift Rashford from United than any other player, whether that be Garnacho, who, yes, has a big price tag, but it's just younger, and clubs are more likely to pay. He has far lower wages than Rashford. You have someone like Antony who, on big wages, but at least wants the Betis move, and Betis want him, so that they're working to they're trying to find a solution to that. Whereas Rashford, I think had a good few months at Villa. I think it's overstated how good it was. I don't think it was good. I don't think it was good enough for Villa to pay 40 million plus his wages, it's a difficult one with Rashford. I don't really see, honestly. I don't see him leaving Man United permanently this summer. I don't think there's a. I think it would have to be another loan, if I'm honest. Obviously, that's not what Man United fans would want to hear. That's not what the club would want to hear, given that the profit posted from 40 million on a homegrown player would be huge for PSR and what United can do this summer in terms of getting other attackers. But I just don't see a world in which he leaves permanently at this point.
Is there anything to suggest, Ben, that there's a chance of a future with Man United? Or is that just done now? He's obviously got 3 years left of his deal at United. He's one of their biggest earners on over £200,000 a week. Supposedly, we've seen his kind of time with Amorim during those few months when they were together not go so well during that time. Is the kind of story of Rashford and Man United just finished now? Do you think they have to sell him? Or is there some way of him clawing away back?
Yeah, with the transfer business that they've already done or are looking to do, with Mbeumo potentially coming through the door, Cunha already coming through the door, those two positions behind the striker is where Rashford would probably suit the best in this system for Amorim. Well, that's certainly where he played when he did get minutes. Before he went out through the door, he was kind of playing with Xerxes as a striker, and Rashford is one of those two number 10s. So I think with them especially moving towards strengthening that position, I think it probably points towards even less of a route for Rashford to have a future at United under Amorim, certainly. Which is it's a shame, really, because I think he, like Mike said, I think he was good at Villa. I think he was good. I think if I was Villa, I wouldn't, or if I was looking at it from a Villa point of view, I wouldn't mind taking the punt, because even though I don't think he set the world on fire when he was there, I think with Emery's track record of being able to kind of improve these players, and he could maybe take Rashford to another level if he went to Villa next season, based off of what there was glimmers there in kind of the few months that he spent. So I think there's no reason to say maybe that couldn't go up a level, but there's also, you can understand why they wouldn't deem it kind of being worth the money. But I don't really see, just with the way that United have kind of moved in the market to strengthen the positions that Rashford would play in, I can't see him having a future there necessarily. But it's a difficult one to see where he ends up. I agree, though. I think it will be another loan. I'm not sure how long Rashford's got left on his deal.
3 years. 3
Yeah.
years.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought it might be like another Sancho situation, maybe where you could kind of see him going out on loan every season until that contract expires, and United maybe just have to take a hit on the money, because I don't think anybody's going to purchase Sancho. I don't think anybody's going to maybe look to purchase, unless it was from abroad, potentially Rashford. But if he's got 3 years left on his deal, it's going to be a difficult one to kind of keep loaning him out.
The issue's going to come back every 6 months or every year, for sure.
I don't really see a future at United, but you never know. Like, if he comes back in pre-season, Amorim might have had time to assess things, think about it. The thing is, I think Amorim is so wedded to that style of play as well. It's not like we were talking about it before we started recording, but you look at Maresca with Chelsea, and I think with the recruitment so far this summer, I think there's kind of a clear shift in maybe the way he wants to play, or certainly like trying to find different systems
Solutions,
and different horses for different courses. And I think it's not like Amorim is like, okay, well, I might, in these games I'm going to stick to the system that I know the best, but actually I can change things up and play with Rashford as a winger, or play him in his more natural role and play a 4 at the back, which I'm sure a lot of United fans would probably want to see Amorim do, but I think he's so wedded to that as well. I think that kind
does limits
Rashford a bit, I think.
There. Yeah, I think one of the things with Rashford as well, it's just been going on now for, I mean, there were glimmers of it with Ten Hag, then it's really come to the front with obviously Amorim. He supposedly also is very keen on a move abroad. Like there's he's very adamant on this like Barcelona move and trying to get something there. The other thing as well, look, United gave him this contract that had these big wages.
Yeah,
it's the same situation with Sancho, right? Like when a player is, as much as it might annoy fans or whatever, a player has every right to see out this contract. Like this is the risk of football, of trying to get these guys tied down for such a long time in their prime, or when they're playing so well that they can maybe not be as good later on in the future, or as it works for. Or as it's happened with Rashford and his time at Manchester United, Rashford had every right to kind of get every penny out of his wages. And if United wants to get rid of him early, United do have the option to pay it all out now. But again, there's kind of a waste in that. They could get fees for sending him on loan, so on and so forth. Or have someone else cover part of his wages.
Yeah, I think this is just it's just been United in a nutshell for the last like nearly 10 years, just like overpaying players in terms of wages. Like, I think if someone came in with an offer in August of 30 million for Rashford, I think United would probably take it. But no one's going to do that, and because of his wage demands. Like I think Rashford and Sancho, if they want permanent moves, will have to lower their wage demands. And I think it comes to a point like you say, they have every right to see out their contracts. Though they probably won't get paid that money anywhere else. Yeah. Even if they go on to become better players than they have been, even if Sancho rediscovers his Dortmund form, I still can't see anyone paying those wages, because they're so astronomical. So it kind of comes to a point as well. Yeah, do you want to earn loads of money, or do you want to enjoy your football and be settled in an environment and be fully happy at a club that you want and that wants you? Like, I think it does kind of come down to the player. There does have to be responsibility with the player in that sense.
Because I think he had that at Villa a bit, didn't he? You could kind of see that spark came back with Rashford a bit when he was at Villa. So it's clear that I think he probably did need a change of environment to get out of the kind of maybe the baggage and the pressure that came with playing for United, and it kind of not necessarily the pressure, but I think the whole situation kind of ground him down a little bit. I think it was quite clear for everyone kind of to see. So I think the wages. I think it's like he's on 325 grand a week at Man United at the moment, where it's or around that kind of figure, which is it? Yeah, like you said, it's like I thought Rashford was decent at Villa, but is anybody going to have seen enough to warrant paying that kind of money? Unless it's maybe Saudi potentially come in. They're the only ones that you could probably see.
But again, it's whether he wants to go there.
Because they're a marquee player in the league. But I don't think he wants to go there.
He can get these wages whilst living in England, like essentially. Yeah, that's the crux of it. It depends on how keen he wants to play football and I'm pretty sure he can push for a loan move to go elsewhere. Like, a lot more clubs, I think, become interested in Rashford towards the end of the window, where they go, yeah, you can get him on a 1 year loan, and you cover 70% of his wages.
How well do you think
be.
Rashford has to do if he wants to go out on loan this season? I think he probably has to do really absolutely tear the place up when he goes on loan next season to then get that permanent move the year after.
Yeah,
it's just like,
I don't mind. Like, if you think about a future where he's saying about Barcelona, I don't mind him if he's willing to be a squad player at Barcelona. I don't mind that. I think that's like he's never going to get ahead of the front three of Lamine Yamal, Lewandowski, and of course Rafinha.
Yeah.
Add to the fact they might go get Nico Williams as well. Yeah. He's fifth in that pecking order, and again, like, just about. So I don't mind if he's willing to do that, but I just don't know if he is.
Unless he played as a striker at Barca, potentially. That's because Lewandowski's not getting any younger.
I mean, Rafinha's done that as well at times for them last season. So there is definitely some sort of future there. But I just think it might be something that we see towards the end of the window. I think United start their pre-season training, or at least the pre-season tour, in a week or so. Here, you assume, won't be a part of that, and then I'm sure things might kind of heat up and trying to get rid of him, especially as United have several moves they need to try and do, and they need to get wages off the books in order to do them. Another player who you mentioned, Ben, I think, Alejandro Garnacho, the Manchester United player who obviously has just turned 21 years old. I think his birthday was like 2 days ago. Amorim apparently told him to find a new club mid-season, which makes it a little bit harder to sell him and get the full value that you want for him. Supposedly United want 70 million. I feel like after, as I just said, like, that fee's not really going to be as achievable. Napoli are interested, but he supposedly wants to stay in the Premier League. This is all what's being reported anyway. So take it for a little bit of pinch of salt. The Garnacho situation, because it's a weird one. He is a player that could have a future at Manchester United, I think. He's a player that has shown huge and bags of potential, and I think it's weird sometimes where just then reading out that you just turned 21. You forget, I think, with Garnacho, because of the kind of player that he is, the focus always kind of being on him at times, wanting to have that kind of those moments by picking up the ball and shooting from 30 yards out, whatever it might be. He lives this stuff, and he isn't. I do genuinely still believe that there is a very good talent there. That traditionally United would want to keep and would want to develop, especially kind of coming through. I know they bought him from Atletico Madrid, but coming through United when he's so young. And it doesn't seem like that future's going to happen, Mikey, does it?
No, it's yeah. I think this is a difficult one. I think I think Garnacho has dug himself a bit of a hole over the last year in terms of his conduct away from the pitch, in terms of you have his agent, I think, to blame a little bit for that as well, because he's a huge talent. Like, I think a lot's been made of him, like his performances dropping off a bit this season, but like you say, he's really young. I honestly think he's got the potential to be one of the best attackers in Europe. Like, he is one of the best attackers in Europe for his age. I think is it something like third most goal involvements of any attacker under the age of 21 in Europe so far in his career. So like, the numbers are there when you watch him on the ball, like, that is there as well. Like, obviously, like, he's not the most efficient at going past his man. His shooting can be wayward. His shot location certainly isn't great, and his decision making, I think, has taken a hit this season. But I think in that last season under Ten Hag, he really matured and was able to affect games from minute 1 to minute 90 in a way that actually no one else in the United team was able to do going forwards. Like, he was United's best attacker. So I think, there could be a number of clubs in for him. The problem is that, like, is there any club in the Premier League right now that Garnacho would want to go to who need a left winger in his mould? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Like, you think, like, years ago, like, 2-3 years ago, you could make the argument for a club like Arsenal maybe, but they're, I think if they're going to sign a left winger, they want someone who's more ready,
more established.
And also, I just don't think Garnacho passes the personality test for Arteta at this moment in time. I just think like at the moment it feels like Arteta's willing to trust Martinelli if he can't get the perfect left winger in. Like whether that, if Arsenal go out and sign Madueke, for example, it's going to be as a squad player. He's not going to be a starter at Arsenal. I think Arteta either wants someone who's one of the best left wingers in the world, or is willing to just be back up to Martinelli. Given the outlay, given what they could spend on Eze, not as a left winger, I think that's what seems to be the case at the moment. So I'm just trying to think. Like Chelsea, a week ago, I was still thinking, I think he wouldn't be the worst pickup. I think he'd be one of the better wingers that Chelsea have signed in recent years. But then Gittins, I think, is more what Chelsea need, or more Maresca needs in terms of like a touchline winger who is an amazing dribbler, and I think just suits Chelsea's style of play a little bit more, especially given the Joao Pedro move as well. So it's just hard to find like a Premier League club for him, really. I do think like a move to Italy or Spain seems to make more sense.
But he wants supposedly to stay in the Premier League. Would you keep him? If you got to say 2 weeks before the Premier League season starts, United obviously have brought in Cunha. At this point, you assume maybe Brian Mbeumo would be done. Yeah. And nobody's like coming in for a fee that you're maybe happy with. Would you keep him?
I mean, I wouldn't be against it, but it just feels like a little bit of a disruption, doesn't it? I think Garnacho would have to be. I think Amorim would have to pull off a real, some real man management magic over the summer, which isn't impossible. He is young. Like he can change his mind, change his outlook. If it becomes clear that there isn't a club out there that want him enough, then I think you do have to swallow your pride a little bit and just be like, I'll just try and make it work here. And if that's as a backup to Cunha, or even as a wing back option, then so be it. Like I think he still has so much potential and ability to change his game as well. That I don't think that's it's still an option for sure. Because like I said, it's hard to see like a club out there, but maybe a club like Dortmund come in for him, maybe even like Bayern if they can't get their top targets, as seems to be at the moment. They seem to be struggling to get that, to sign that left winger that they want. Maybe they take a chance on him. But at the moment it's hard to see like a clear suitor for him.
I think in the Prem, the only kind of team that maybe springs to mind that Garnacho would probably, that is of the level that Garnacho could see himself at, but also has the money to be able to facilitate a deal like that, is Aston Villa.
Yeah, I thought
like a more transitional kind of system. Yeah. I think that suits Garnacho a little bit in terms of, like, he is a good 1v1 winger. He's a decent dribbler, and I think that's again something that will grow in his game as well. But I think if you want to kind of get that confidence flowing back into him, get him kind of running into space, get him into goal scoring opportunities where he doesn't maybe have to think too much about the finish or the decision that he needs to make, because I do think, obviously, when you look at, again, kind of back to the Rashford conversation, when you look at Cunha and Mbeumo, again, two players that would be brought in to play in the position that Garnacho would fill as a squad player, because he's not going to use as a wing back.
Yeah.
Garnacho just, the biggest thing that needs refinement is that decision making and that shot selection. Like you were saying earlier, those two are killers, like Mbeumo and Cunha, like so good in front of goal, whether that's in terms of fashioning a chance for themselves, like Cunha, or whether that's Mbeumo being put on the end of something. And maybe Garnacho suits Villa the best because it allows him to, I think the system that Emery would maybe deploy him in would allow him to regain the most amount of confidence in his ability, and then all of the other stuff maybe does start to come back a little bit, and then he becomes a little bit more refined. And I think Emery, again, like we said about Rashford, has got a really good track record of being able to improve these players and attackers especially. But I do think maybe abroad, again, it's a bit like Rashford. It's like you kind of feel like, look at McTominay, for example. I know McTominay never went through the rigmarole at United of what Garnacho and Rashford have gone through with some of the off-the-field stuff and the baggage that comes with that. But getting out of that environment and then going somewhere and then just becoming like the MVP in Serie A, a title winner, and just getting out of that environment that maybe feels a bit comfortable, I think, as well. Like, obviously, well, it feels comfortable to an extent because you know it and you've come through the academy, but does come with a lot of pressure and a lot of scrutiny. So maybe getting outside of that kind of bubble of England would probably help.
And he had a real hard time with the fans as well last season.
Yeah.
I think with Villa, it feels like a similar problem. Like he'd be up against Morgan Rogers for a place in the team, and it's like, that feels like an impossible task.
I suppose on that left-hand side, though, I suppose with Rashford actually going, there's not quite as much competition. I know Rogers kind of plays in that half space off the left.
Yeah. And Rashford gets played a bit through the middle as well for Villa, didn't he?
Yeah, they're potentially looking at offloading Ramsey as well, Villa.
Yes.
Because obviously that would alleviate their PSR situation.
And Leon Bailey, so like maybe if Garnacho was to be up for playing some minutes on the right as well.
Yeah, and they've got European football
really
as well still, which is
attractive. Yeah.
No, it's an interesting one with Garnacho.
It is. Only time will tell. Another player who's been in the news recently, Mohammed Kudus, obviously for West Ham, been linked a lot to Tottenham Hotspur. I've seen Ben getting excited on socials around him. 25 years old at the start of the season. He'll be supposedly he has the release clause of not even supposedly. It is an active release clause right now for I think the first 10 days of July of £85 million. Though I think it's regarded that West Ham will accept lower towards maybe the 60 figure to get him. This is a guy who in his first season in the Premier League was electric. It was absolutely ridiculous. And to be fair, like even though he was definitely not as good last season, he still had moments. Like you still see there's a player in there of huge ability. Super versatile, can play basically anywhere along the forward line. Even I think when he was at Ajax, he's playing at like centre mid at times for them. But I don't know if that's where you'd want him to play for Tottenham Hotspur. However, I also think it's worth looking at from a West Ham point of view here. Somebody who West Ham next season are going into a very, I think, big year for them. A full season under Graham Potter. The Paqueta situation still isn't quite known on what's going to happen there, but he is one of their best players and they could be without him. They are still struggling for a striker. Their defence is a little bit of a mess, I think, as well. Their midfield, too. They've got, as I said, get used to a system with Graham Potter. Can they afford to let go of someone who is, on his day, one of their best player in Kudus? And yes, they'd get a good fee for him, but can they afford to do that? Is it worth selling him, which might impact them later on? Obviously, they get money, they can then reinvest that into the squad, of course. What do you think, Ben?
I think their squad does need quite a bit of work, to be fair. I think we when we did an episode a few weeks ago where it was like the biggest problem every club needs to fix, at West Ham, it was kind of hard to know where to start almost. And I think Potter didn't exactly win over the fans in that second half of the season, but I think it's unfair to judge him fully when he hasn't had a transfer window. And I do think in terms of wanting to play the style that he wants, they need quite significant funds to be able to make that happen. West Ham have always spent decent money, to be fair. Like they always have. But I do think when you look at that defence, you look at the midfield as well. Like I think their options for kind of that double pivot that Potter likes to play going into next season. You've got Souček, you've got Ward-Prowse, Alvarez, who hasn't exactly been the most convincing. It's like it doesn't really, it doesn't feel good enough, or it certainly doesn't feel like it's enough. And I feel like that obviously there's the situation with Antonio as well. I think they might be giving him a new contract now potentially, even though it expired. They thought they weren't going to. I think that they could do with the striker. Evan Ferguson came in on loan in January, didn't exactly do what you wanted him to do. So I think obviously the saleable assets at West Ham are Kudus, Paqueta, Bowen. Bowen is absolutely untouchable at West Ham. He's kind of literally wedded to them now. And Paqueta, obviously, it's still a massive grey area as to what is going to happen with him. And I think obviously if he was to leave Paqueta, it seems like the sort of situation where he would probably go back home to Brazil, where you probably wouldn't get the money that certainly West Ham would have got for him last summer when Man City agreed, what was it, like a 60, 70 million pound, and even more than that, I think, wasn't it? Like 80, I thought
there was rumours of nearly 100 basically.
Like the deal for that. So that money's that's gone while that situation's up in the air. Kudus, obviously no one's going to pay 85 million off the back of the season that he just had, but I think there is an immense talent in there, 100%. And apparently a lot of top clubs are looking at him as well as Spurs. I think they would probably be willing to accept around. I think apparently Spurs had a bid rejected for like 50 plus add-ons, which maybe they don't want to do that, but maybe 60 could get that kind of done. I think 60 million would be a decent amount of money.
Value,
yeah, I think it'd be. Yeah, I think it's actually also from a Spurs perspective or a Chelsea perspective, maybe. Although Kudus didn't have the best season last year, I think that would actually represent decent value compared to some of the other options in the market that would be around a similar price. Like you think about how, I know he's signed a new contract now, but you think about how Semenyo was kind of being priced, for example. I think 70 million for him compared to 60 for Kudus, who gives you that versatility and has a track record of producing big X-factor game kind of winning moments as well. But yeah, I think for West Ham, I think West Ham fans are in a position where they would quite happily sell him given what did happen last season. So I think it's a bit of a win-win for them. They take 60 million. Obviously, if he does go to Spurs, I think it's not going to be nice for them to see him at us. But I think in terms of the money, what that could do to rejuvenate the West Ham squad that needs a lot of work, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer.
And you think about like whether it ultimately depends on like how much Graham Potter values him as well. Does Graham Potter see him?
He didn't really trust him as like a number 10, did he? Bowen was playing out on the right. I think when Potter came in, he played out on the left a lot, which he can do, but it doesn't. It's not his best position.
Well, I guess that's where where do you see him at Spurs? Because I think the middle of the park feels pretty set at Spurs. You've got Maddison. Who, when fit, like Kulusevski, I think has played some of his best football for Spurs as a 10. Yeah. But then, I'd still Kulusevski, I think is on the right is still brilliant. But then Brennan Johnson, of course, had a really strong end to the season. Do you see Kudus as the left wing option at Spurs, or do you where do you see him fitting in?
I think it's more likely that I think his best football would be as a right winger or as a number 10. I think he operates best on the right. I do think he would play well on the left, and I think if you matched him up with a Brennan Johnson kind of profile on the right, because Kudus is one of the best dribblers in the Premier League. He completed the same amount of dribbles as Jeremy Doku last season. That was only second behind Lamine Yamal in all of Europe's top 5 leagues. Bear in mind, it was a poor season for Kudus. He does have that amazing ability to take players out of the game, and he kind of has this gravity around him where he attracts 3 or 4 players because he's so hard to shrug off it because of his physicality as well. And when you look at the wingers that Spurs have got on the right hand side in Johnson and on the left hand side in Tell and Son, if Son was to stay, all of those 3 wingers are wingers that thrive running into space. And I think if you compare Kudus up, even though I think he's better suited to play on the right, you compare him on the left with Johnson on the right, or him on the right with Tell or Son on the left, to really kind of maximise their ability to run into that space that he would leave by attracting those players around him. But I also think the thing is with Tottenham going into next season is that, yes, it's like a lot of people were confused when we were in for Eze, or like a number 10 kind of generally. But Maddison spent quite a lot of time out injured last season. Kulusevski picked up what we thought was an insignificant injury at the back end of last season and said that he'd be back for the Europa League final, and is now apparently going to be out till potentially November. So again, it's going to be a bit of a difficult one to see when he comes back, but also when he starts to play his best football again. But I do agree with you. I actually think Kudus and Kulusevski profile very similarly, but in different. They have different attributes, but I think they play best in that right kind of half space. They're both great at carrying the ball from deep into the final third. Kudus is a better dribbler, but they both have that same physicality, like, get off me, I'm going to shrug you off, I'm going to drive past you. But I also think he has that maybe ability that Kulusevski doesn't in producing like real moments of quality out of nowhere. Kulusevski is an amazing footballer, but I think Kudus just has that magic about him that maybe Kulusevski lacks slightly, even though I rate him so highly. So I think it would be a sensible fit for Spurs because of the fact that he can play across those 3 positions. But I do see, and also he
could also even be a backup to Solanke as well if needs to be. Like he can be a bit of a auxiliary centre forward, and is able to do the off the ball work, not as well as Solanke, obviously, like one of the best pressing centre forwards out there, but like he does have that ability to fill that hole if needs to be as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't we talk about actually a Spurs player, which is an interesting one, I think, especially for this kind of should Spurs keep him, should Spurs look to sell him. Cristian Romero. Yeah. Obviously, one of the players who I think seems almost most affected by Ange Postecoglou leaving. Ange had a very big trust in him, I think, especially with the way he wanted to play his football at Tottenham Hotspur. And it seems as if now that Ange is gone, that maybe he wants to kind of look elsewhere. I mean, the Atletico Madrid move has always been touted for a long, long time. This is a guy who is a fantastic centre-back. Like, there is no doubt about it. I know a lot of people do want to maybe kind of go against that. Even myself at times, I have definitely said that. However, I think you can see when he is on his day, I think the partnership with Van der Ven works really well. They dovetail really nicely together. It'll be really interesting to see how maybe Thomas Frank would want to use them. I think it would be definitely a lot less aggressive, and whether they look to flourish even more so whilst in maybe a bit more of a secure defensive play style. However, Cristian Romero, Ben, what do we think? In a dream world, would you like to keep him? But
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe in a reality world, where do you think it ends up going?
It's a difficult one because he's in that kind of 2-year. He's got 2 years left on his contract, so he's kind of in that almost. It's a big summer for him, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Obviously,
this is something you can make the most money, isn't it?
Yeah, there has been a lot of chat in the last kind of 24, 48 hours coming out of Spain about the fact that Atletico are getting closer to agreeing a deal. Apparently, Daniel Levy made him an offer to make him the highest paid player at Spurs, which he turned down and said that it's not about the money. I'll be always grateful for what I did at Spurs winning that trophy, but I want to kind of move on. Again, I feel like it's kind of this. Again, I could be wrong. This could be a glass half full. Look at it from a Spurs fan's point of view, but it does feel like that Spanish media kind of trying to put the pressure on a little bit, because all of the stuff that's come out of England is like, nobody has come anywhere near close to matching Tottenham's valuation of him, which is believed to be around £70 million, which I think for
it's a lot of money.
Well, a lot of money for a centre back.
Yeah, but for
and who's had injury problems as well.
I think that's the big that's a fair thing. I mean, Romero's a World Cup winner. He's a 2-time Copa America winner. He is a big game player, and I think he
Europa League winner.
Yeah, Europa League winner now as well. I can't believe I forgot that. Left that bit last. But I think when he is fit, he's worth that, in my opinion. But I understand why Atletico would maybe want to try and do a deal under that. I don't know. I would love to keep him, because I think to try and keep as much continuity in that leadership group. Bear in mind, we might lose Son. I think this summer this could be the summer we lose Son. Would be the best thing to do. And also, he's a quality centre half, and you wouldn't want to lose him, especially for under what you think he might be valued at. And there is a chance that he could be maybe made the next captain. I saw someone, it was like an aggregator, put out a thing saying Thomas Frank wants to keep Romero. It's like, well, obviously. Of course you would, wouldn't you? But I think maybe it's a difficult one, because you don't want to get into a situation where you've got 1 year left on his deal, then because Spurs paid about between 40 and 50 for Romero.
Yeah, you did.
I don't know whether you'd be able to get that next year, but also I'm kind of the mindset going into the Champions League. I don't know how many other ball-playing centre-backs out there on the market that Spurs could go and get could replace what he does, but then it might be a case of Moneyball kind of style, replacing him in the aggregate a little bit, bringing in a really quality defender first and foremost, and then I think the main thing that Spurs would lose with Romero is his ball progression.
Yeah.
So I think I would love to keep on to him for that, but if we were to lose him, I think signing a midfielder, a deep line playmaker, is actually more important than going and replacing Romero like for like, because I don't think there are many centre backs that can do what he can do to the level when he's on his day on the ball. But I would absolutely love to keep him. He's like I said, when he is fit and when he's at his best, he is an absolute monster. And hopefully, if we have a system which gives that back four a little bit more protection, and he isn't as tasked with being as aggressive as he needed to be, maybe under Ange with the way that we wanted to play, then you'll maybe see that fitness, you'll maybe see him be a bit more robust in terms of his fitness next season. Same with Van der Ven as well. Like, hopefully, where the system doesn't put as much pressure on them from a defensive point of view, then you won't see as many injuries. And also, we've got Kevin Danso, who I think did okay in that loan move, has obviously been made permanent now as well. We can rotate in the cup games and maybe in Champions League games as well.
And who's the youngster you've got? Do you think he'll come to the first? Will he come to the first team?
I think so. I think certainly.
Is he left side or right side?
Right side.
Right side.
I think certainly until at least January. I think Spurs don't want to end up in the same position where we did only have Romero and Van der Ven, and then drag us in, and then it was a case of playing Archie Gray at centre back. So I think until at least January, even if he doesn't play a lot of football, you know he's there as a backup option, and then if he doesn't play, then January give him a loan. So I would certainly look to keep him. If they did come in with 70 million, then does that make sense to say? I mean, I'm probably not the right person to answer this, because it's like I've got too much skin in the game. But
Where do you think it is, Mikey?
I think 70 million is very hard to turn down for a centre back in this market, even as good as Romero is. Like you say, contract situation, you're never going to get that fee from again. But I do sympathise with your position. Ultimately you want to keep like centre backs are really hard to replace. If Spurs are looking at breaking into the top 4 next season, which I think with a manager the quality of Thomas Frank, I mean, maybe that sounds a bit ridiculous given that they finished 17th last season. But I mean, I think Spurs are going to,
isn't it?
Spurs are going, I think, are going to finish in the top half next season. I'd be surprised if they didn't. And yeah, like I think if you want to make a strong case for yourself in the Champions League and qualifying for it next year, again, then having a settled back line is really important. Having said that, like we've seen how intelligent Thomas Frank has set up his Brentford teams over the years, and had centre backs play like far above their level.
Yeah.
So I think the options that Frank has at his disposal, even without Romero, I think can lend themselves to that. He can, he's proven as well, Frank, that he can play. He can play teams that are just as good in a 4 at the back and with a 3 at the back. And I think also with the options that Spurs have in midfield and attack, like you could imagine that like Udogie and Porro have both plied their trade as wing backs initially. If it came to it and you needed more protection there, I could see Spurs reverting to a 3 at the back if they needed to. So it's not I think that Van de Ven Romero partnership, if you had to adapt without it, then I think you'd be able to. And 70 million is just it's such a big amount of money, and I think I would back Spurs to reinvest it well with the context of Frank being the manager,
especially for a player as well that's almost kind of saying he wants to go.
Yeah,
it never comes out where a player's just like, oh yeah, I've refused to. I mean, every now and again it does, but like he's going to refuse to train, not at all.
Yeah,
but in the back of his mind, that's always going to be a thing that keeps going on. But the story is like, when's it going to get that move? When's he going to have that move? Like I remember Eden Hazard and Real Madrid years after year after year. It was okay, when's he going to finally get that Real Madrid move?
Yeah,
it's always almost like. I always think it's...
Didn't he have pretty much his best season at Chelsea just before he got the move?
No, exactly. But I always think it's sometimes it like takes away from the moments that are happening in front of you where you've got this player that just wants to be elsewhere. And also, like for someone like Thomas Frank, I think, who's coming into a season where he kind of needs no one shaking the boat as it is.
Yeah.
Having these other extra kind of storylines around him where Romero wants to leave or whatever is a bit more added pressure.
Yeah,
like
think about when Nuno came into Spurs, he had the Harry Kane kind of thing hanging over his head. And so did Ange, actually, to be fair. Both of them did for the whole summer. Kane, like when Nuno came in, Kane did... There was rumours that he did refuse to train. He didn't come back from holiday and all this kind of stuff to force that move through. I think it's going to be clearer. I think Spurs, well, it's going to be the case for all Premier League clubs, but Spurs players I think are back this Saturday ahead of first pre-season game in a couple of weeks, and Romero will be part of that, so it'll be interesting to see the kind of stuff that starts to come out in the media maybe next week about conversations that might have been had, etc. I mean, we're not going to know everything, we're not going to know the full details. I think Romero's not the sort of character to throw his toys out the pram or cry about the fact that he didn't get the move. And I do think Spurs' position is quite clear. They value him at a certain price.
It needs to be met.
And it needs to be met. Otherwise, he won't go. And I think that's kind of where I stand on it. If someone does meet the money, I'll begrudgingly kind of say, look, it's hard to turn down that money. But I think unless someone does that, then I think he's going to be here next season.
Okay, well, we will see. Another player that I want to move on to, we've mentioned Villa a few times, but obviously Emi Martinez is an interesting one for them in goal. There's been rumours to a few different teams, Saudi Arabia, I think a couple of clubs there. Manchester United, actually, there's been a key rumour for him as well.
Yeah.
He is soon to be 33 years old. It's always funny with Martinez because... especially considering he wins goalkeeper of the year several times. Sometimes I don't feel like he actually is the goalkeeper of the year, but I think that's a different conversation entirely. He is a good quality goalkeeper. He's a goalkeeper that could happily be playing in the Champions League regularly, absolutely fine. He is, as I said, a little bit older for a goalkeeper as well, 33. Villa, we've mentioned previously, even though I think they have kind of sorted out their PSR stuff, they're still not like perfect,
we're past the deadline now, aren't we?
Exactly.
They
sold the old women's team, didn't they? To themselves, kind of thing. But yes, so Emi Martinez, the situation there, Mikey. Do you think he should stay? Do you think Villa should sell him? Because also, he has been vital to Villa, especially over the last few years. And getting rid of a key player like that who has so much personality, has kept them in games in huge moments, is a big risk. It's a very big risk to do. And do you think they should take that risk?
Yeah, I don't really have like particularly strong feelings on this. If I'm honest, I think if Martinez were to leave, then there are options out there to replace him. I think there are keepers who've had better shot-stopping records over the last couple of years. Milinkovic-Savic stands out. I think for Torino, I think he could potentially be a very good fit at Villa. But I think if he stays, like you say, Zach, like he is like one of the biggest characters in this Villa team. He has been a defining part of them going from, relegation strugglers to a Champions League side over the last few years. And yeah, he has been a big game player for them, albeit one who does have a mistake in him as well. I think from the player's perspective, it kind of makes more sense to stay. Like I think it's I would probably want to stay more than anything if I was Emi Martinez, just because you're so settled there. You're loved at the club. And I just think there's a risk with Martinez if he was to go to the big clubs in the Premier League, for example, who are linked with him. If he was to leave, are United and Chelsea. I would honestly avoid both of those clubs like the plague if I was Emi Martinez. I just think, and obviously as a goalkeeper, you have supreme confidence in yourself. But from an outside perspective, this is a big character who, yes, has, is very decent in terms of, sweeping up and coming off his line, and can produce amazing saves in the box as well, but does have a mistake in him and isn't the best ball playing wise. That just sounds like that just sounds like exactly the kind of things that he's going to be scrutinised on if he was going to go to Chelsea or Man United, who both have goalkeepers who, have been error prone and have had their ball playing ability scrutinised as well. And he's older than both those players. I just don't see that both those moves could not make less sense to me. If you were to, I don't know, I just can't really see a Premier League club either at Villa's level or above Villa's level where he would go to. So I think it would have to be abroad, which again, he could do, but he's been so settled in England for so long. Yeah. So unless it was going to be a big move to Saudi, I don't know whether he'd want to move to Saudi. He wants to up sticks and go to Spain or Italy. Then I don't really see much value in him leaving Villa. For him, from a personal perspective,
he's still got a contract till 2029 as well. Yeah. So it's not like he needs a last huge payday one to get him over the next 2 years. Yeah. He's going to be at Villa for, if he wants to, for the next four seasons if he'd like. Yes. And that will take him through to 36 years old and whatnot, on whatever wages he might be on at Villa. Unless Saudi clubs offering crazy money, you can't necessarily see it that wise. I do tend to agree. I think the Chelsea rumours were put to bed as if I think Chelsea almost kind of came out or told people in the press that no, we're not interested in Martinez, not the kind of guy. And it would also be a very
if you've turned down Maignan, then why would you go for Martinez?
Exactly.
It's a bit of a weird one.
So again, United one is one that I think seems a little bit more interest there, but remains to be seen whether that actually does happen. I think Villa fans as well,
Go for it.
I've seen a few Villa fans over the last couple of months actually kind of turn a little bit on Martinez. I don't know if part of that's to do with obviously the red card decision that happened against kind of Man United on the final day, or if just generally they've kind of come a bit more to their senses of realising what Martinez is. And I've seen them almost say if we can get some money for him now, wouldn't be against it. Because you are right, Mikey. This transfer window does feel like the transfer window of strikers. But subtly, there is a bit of a transfer window for goalkeepers happening as well so far. Like we've seen Newcastle go and get Trafford. We've seen Chelsea, Manchester United possibly interested in one as well. Man City need a goalkeeper. Like there is Barcelona have just signed a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean Barcelona have taken probably the best option.
Yeah.
Off the market.
Did it very quickly as well. Arsenal technically needed a goalkeeper in kind of a second choice. Bournemouth probably need a goalkeeper. But point being, there are a lot of clubs looking for these guys in these positions. And so there are a few that are available of really good talent. However, they probably will get snatched up quite quickly if they are to act. So that will be interesting on that side. Anything to add about Martinez, Ben?
Not really. I don't really see... if it is just kind of Man United in the race from a Premier League point of view, there's no project that's more stable and has better potential than Villa for Martinez to go to. Like Man United could be back amongst the European places next season, but is that worth the trade-off unless he was getting paid significantly more money? Also, I think from a Villa point of view, even though I think I've fallen into the trap at times of going, oh my God, Martinez is like the best goalkeeper in the world. Like the big moments that he's produced in the Champions League and World Cups and all this kind of stuff. Like I think I've definitely fallen into that trap because he does things sometimes. Like early Champions League this season, was it the Bayern game? I think they won at home. It was like there's not many goalkeepers in the world that can perform under the pressure like that and kind of produce. I think it was like a really good last minute save and all this kind of thing. And I do feel like I've been trapped into that conversation. But at the same time, even though I think what Villa I think maybe should look to do, it was weird with Martinez because it was the last home game of the season they played against Spurs and he looked like he was off, like he was crying and sort of like waving and but I think they would do a lot worse than kind of keeping him and then bringing in another younger goalkeeper to maybe actually push him and then take over next season because Villa are back in they're obviously in the Europa League this season. Martinez, I think, again, on their route to the Conference League final, had a couple of big moments. I think it was the game against Lille where... Did he save a penalty, I think, in that game?
Testing my memory here, mate.
But I remember there was a thing with Martinez where I feel like he saved a penalty.
He's an unbelievable penalty shot stopper.
It's like they're going to have moments where and I think in that game they were like really under the cosh. Villa fans remind me in the comments what that game was. I think it was Lille. And it's like they will need a big character like that, and I think they could do a lot worse than maybe trying to. I think to be fair, I think most Villa fans would probably accept that as the ideal situation, bringing a younger goalkeeper that can compete and push that will then take over next season. That's what I would be looking to do if I was them.
Fair enough. We've still got a few more names that we can kind of go through quicker. I do want to highlight one. I mean, it's a pretty obvious sale. There's kind of a couple players from Chelsea you could speak about. In Nkunku sale, there's obviously links to him to Man United. Raheem Sterling, if they can sell him, but again, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But
how long has Sterling got left on his contract at this point at Chelsea?
God, that's a very good question. Could be
signed 2023, didn't he?
Yeah, he signed under
2022.
Under Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah. It was 2022. Yeah.
He was obviously now 30. It's mad what we've seen with us. He's only 30. He feels like obviously when he came through at 16 he should be much older. Raheem Sterling's contract at Chelsea is until 2027. So he's got 2 more years, but the issue for him is I think he's one of the few Chelsea players now. There's another Ben Chilwell technically in Chelsea, still at the club.
Both on big wages as
both
well,
on big wages, and I think Raheem Sterling's on the highest. I think he's on like over £300,000 a week. I think his transfer is almost what made them realise that maybe we should stop giving these players huge wages and go make it a very performance based. So I'm very interested to see. But again, like I said with Rashford, like Sterling's not going to get those wages elsewhere. So 100% eat it up. Like take your 2 years here, go on loan to whatever club might be interested. Obviously we saw it was Arsenal last summer. Who knows who it could be this year, but go on loan to them.
Even if he goes on loan somewhere, though, Chelsea are going to have to pay the majority
of
his
100%,
wages.
100%.
And the problem that Sterling has is that like he didn't, he went to Arsenal playing under a coach who had got like massive results out of him at Man City and wasn't trusted like one bit. It was like actually kind of shocking just how much Arteta didn't trust Sterling last season. Clearly wasn't getting the player that he didn't get the player that he thought he was getting, which is obviously sad given like just how amazing just how amazing a career Sterling has had, at club level and international level. But really difficult to see where Sterling goes
I
from
mean,
here,
I can see
honestly.
it'll very much be, and I reckon it could be for a few of these guys like Chilwell as well. Last like week of the window, you see a loan move to somewhere. Like I for instance, say Villa, they haven't sorted out a left winger backup to Morgan Rogers, and you see that we just feels like we're just chucking everyone at Villa.
Yes.
But to Villa, I don't know, Forest for instance, they need like another person to kind of add competition or have on that left wing role for Callum Hudson-Odoi. Who knows? But I can see that being the situation. It gets to the end of the transfer window, and then there's a loan move. Because I don't see them like giving up on their contract. And as I said,
Weirdly,
why
Forest
should they?
actually makes more sense
Than
for
Villa.
Rashford. Someone like Rashford, actually, in terms of like a counter-attacking team. Where, like, actually, I think Rashford would get more minutes just because I don't think Hudson-Odoi is as immovable as, like, someone like Morgan Rogers. Or, like, I mean, Alanga, who knows, like, if Newcastle come in with an improved offer for him. But, yeah, not to just bring it back to Rashford, but just that just kind of went off of my mind. Actually, like, Forest, like, stylistically, even if they were...
I think it's
to pay those wages. But,
I think it's a good shout. One of the players, though, from the Chelsea kind of guys that are looking to leave, Joao Felix. What happens with Joao Felix? Because it's such a interesting move. He moved to Chelsea for £42 million last summer. Late on in the window, with obviously Gallagher going the other way. I think it was like 35 or whatever. Very different players, but still. He then played 12 times for Chelsea, several of those coming off of the bench, or majority of them actually coming off of the bench. Then obviously went on loan in the January window to AC Milan. Played 15 times for AC Milan. Didn't really do him much credit there either.
Did he even get a goal or an assist in Serie A? Maybe towards the end of the season, but like,
I don't think so.
Didn't contribute much.
He had that moment with Kyle Walker as well, didn't he? Where Walker was like seen to sort of say like, "Why are you not passing?" and all this kind of stuff. It was a bit like, I mean, that kind of got blown out of proportion at the time. But it was a bit like, it was quite brutal.
He's 25 years old now. He's 26 in November. Supposedly, there's rumours of a Benfica interest to kind of go back there, which I don't mind. I think that's quite a nice kind of place for him to kind of get his career back on track. Because this is a guy who, when he first came through and won the Golden Boy Award, was ridiculous. Like, he was such a talented player. And I always think Joao Felix, in what he is as a footballer, is always what I think, as growing up, people wanted to see in footballers. Someone who is creative, someone who has the ability to beat a man, can shoot from outside the box, has these fancy touches. It is kind of that 10 role. But I don't know, it's just he spent a long time at Atletico Madrid, won the league with them as well, but played in a system that might not have been very used to the way that you want to get the best out of someone.
I think
like
he was
him.
misprofiled for a while, and then
he was a striker at one point.
Yeah, he was playing he was playing as a striker a ton, and Atleti during that period under Simeone, where they were still playing very defensive football, and then when Simeone switched to a more attacking style of play, by that point Griezmann was at the was back at the club and was taking up the kind of positions that Joao Felix would have otherwise taken. I
think a lot was also
it's been a rough kind of journey for him.
Definitely.
I think a move back to Portugal would make a ton of sense.
A lot was expected of him as well, especially once Griezmann left too. He was almost meant to take the Griezmann mantle, and obviously Griezmann's one genuinely over the last 15 years. Griezmann's one of the best players we've seen really in the world. Anyway, Joao Felix, what do you think should happen here? Because he obviously doesn't want to be a bit part role at Chelsea. Like, that's half the reason he wanted to go on loan. He doesn't want to be on a bench option, because if he wanted to, I think he'd be fine to stay at Chelsea. Maybe less so now that Chelsea brought in, especially like Joao Pedro. Kind of eliminates that. But is it just if you can go back to Benfica, that's a happy move? I always felt like there were links to PSG a few years ago, wasn't there? With Felix. Don't think that will happen now, especially with what they've kind of built there under Enrique. But do we just feel like it should be a go back to Portugal, Ben?
Maybe Aston Villa again. Chuck them in the mix for another sort of number 10.
I mean, they were interesting. Unai Emery has supposedly been keen. He's been keen on several times. They were keen on him before he came to Chelsea as well. I don't know whether kind of his time at Chelsea previously was the determining factor in that. But again, do we see a world where they had a lot of success with Asensio, who does, whether he's able to stay or not remains to be seen. But he's not going to be playing over Morgan Rogers, really, is he? he's not really. I mean, could do a job on the right wing, maybe.
Yeah, probably doesn't make that.
He's
much
not
sense.
playing up front.
As a replacement at Crystal Palace,
That would
as
be
he
fun.
leaves.
I think that'd be really
Playing
fun.
on
That'd
that
be
left
really
half
fun.
space,
But
like-
would he want to? Would he do it? Like, I don't think that.
Someone
I
said
think he
before. I
would.
remember someone said that he should go to Wolves. Like that.
Join
would-
the Portuguese contingent.
Yeah. But I mean, I'd be amazed if that happened. but-
Exactly. Like this is a guy who I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be very, very interesting. But
Don't know if he's got the physicality
wouldn't
for
see him doing
Wolves.
it.
Is
No.
the only thing. I think you need someone. I mean, I know, like, obviously it's going to be hard to find a like replacement for Cunha, but I feel like
such strong ball carrier.
Yeah.
Who's the other? I always forget his name. The other number 10 that they've been using, Marshall Monetzi. Kind of very much used as more of like a sacrificial piece in that kind of system, like a runner, a really strong presser, and it was kind of then that freed Cunha or whoever was playing kind of in the other hole behind the striker to kind of really do their thing. Yeah, I'd be amazed. It was just like I think someone made it up as like a fun thing of like I could see him there. But Prem, I think it's just maybe it's the physicality of the Prem generally that he's not kind of. I saw a lot of people like with the Joao Pedro thing at Chelsea, kind of saying, oh, well, they've signed another sort of striker, sort of number 10, a bit like Nkunku and Felix, and if it didn't work out for those two, then why is it going to work out for Pedro? But I do think with Pedro, even though his injury record hasn't been the best, you can clearly see that he is cut out to play in this league.
yeah.
He can be a bit of a bully, and is physically up to it 100%, even though he has had injury problems. I just think maybe with Nkunku and Felix, maybe just not so much.
I still think
Joao
there's
Pedro was kind of like, he was kind of brought up in the cauldron of the Championship as well, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah,
Watford,
yeah.
like he
Getting
really
kind of kicked
he
all
had
over
to
the
kick.
place.
Yeah, he's taken such a
and he was
kicking over the
unbelievable
years.
for them,
Yeah,
He was very, very good.
To the point where Watford even like did a whole gushing post about him going to Chelsea. I don't know if you saw that.
they?
Like, they were like,
Yeah.
once a Hornet, always a Hornet. Like did like a kind of like a versus style
wow.
like caption for him. It was like a whole like essay almost on him.
Yeah.
So like which I was kind of surprised at, but clearly still very beloved there. So
Yeah, it was
I mean, they
Yeah.
did love
Captain at a
him.
very young age,
They
yeah.
absolutely adored him at Watford. He was unbelievable for them. Just a couple of players. We can again go through these very quickly. We can go almost to Europe here for a few of them. Barcola. I mean, he is just going to stay, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's not. I think it's fair enough. He got a lot of minutes to be fair.
I think the only place where I would say with Barcola, like if they were to come in with like an astronomical offer, maybe like he is the Bayern Munich left
Yeah, I was
winger.
gonna
That like
say
I would
Bayern.
love like that for some reason that makes a lot of sense to me. Barcola,
Musiala.
Elise, Musiala in the middle, and Kane,
Kane
especially
up top.
given that Bayern missed out on Wirtz, like there is clearly some money to spend there. Whether PSG like sell him to a direct European rival, I can't see that. But
Yeah.
I also think
that's,
they don't.
but like from a player perspective, that would be the
They're
place.
clearly after a big attacker, like you said, aren't
Yeah.
they, as well? They've had bids turned down for, I think, Luis Diaz. I think they've...
yeah.
I still think Xavi Simons ends up at Bayern. I think that's the one.
It's not an awful shot at all. Yeah, I could,
Someone
I could
better
see it.
value as well.
If they wanted Wirtz, who can kind of play anywhere behind, like Wirtz kind of can play on the left, can play as a 10.
Yeah.
I just still see that happening because there's been a lot of links with Simmons to the Premier League, and that'd be so fun. I'd love to see him at Spurs. I'd love to see him just in the league generally. I think he's a fascinating player, but I could still see him going to Bayern. But I would like Barcola
Very
as well.
true.
Like on that left, the technical quality behind Kane in that front three of Musiala, Elise, and Barcola would be an absolute joke.
So much fun.
I just don't see them selling him. He's just
No.
like you got to have good squad depth.
I think
as
people saw
well,
like
and
Kvaratskhelia
that is-
coming. I think
He's started
again,
27 games.
I fell into the trap a little bit of like because Barcola was so impressive in that first half of the season, and then he had that game against Man City in the Champions League just as Kvaratskhelia had been signed for PSG. I think a lot of people, including myself, were like, if you're Barcola, you're looking at this thinking, what have I got to do? Like I've been so good, and it's like go and be the main man somewhere else. But actually, I think with PSG, we still see them maybe as this like, even though like they've garnered so much respect for what they've done under Enrique in terms of pushing out the ego, so to speak, and kind of building a more well-rounded team. We kind of see it as like, no, those are the front three. They have to be playing. We can't see them as like building a squad.
Yeah,
In a way,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's like how could they? Why are they doing that? But Barcola, it's like I'm surprised actually. Like if Arsenal are in for a left winger, I'm surprised they kind of haven't pushed. But maybe they've just been pushed off the centre.
I reckon literally, if you contact PSG for Barcola, they just go.
That's what I mean. I reckon they've probably just been pushed off the centre and go, like, absolutely no chance.
Exactly. No, very, very true. Vlahovic at Juventus is an interesting one. He's linked a few places. Yeah. Seems like he's going to be off. There's actually a really interesting deal, possibly, of Sancho going to them and Vlahovic coming to Manchester United.
Interesting.
Which is interesting, but obviously he doesn't look like he's off. No. Where do you think would be best suited to him then, Mike? Because clubs do need strikers.
Yeah, I mean,
United need a striker.
Yeah, I think it depends how much Juve are going to charge. I don't think United should be going for a striker from outside the Premier League who has, been patchy in terms of his goal scoring record. I would avoid that for sure. Feels like a bit of maybe a market opportunity, but I don't think United can afford to go for another unknown up top. Not that Vlahovic is an unknown, but like an unknown in terms of how he'd fit at United. I would probably avoid. But like Jonathan David's now come in. Rumours that Juve are still keen to go for Osimhen as well as Jonathan David. So it does feel like his days are numbered there. Honestly, I'd probably look for a club elsewhere in Italy. As for which club that is,
Roma just got rid of Tammy, didn't they?
Yeah, maybe Roma, maybe Milan. But yeah, he clearly has. Yeah, he still has, a lot of worth in Serie A. Like his record at Fiorentina was amazing.
Yeah.
I'd probably stick in Italy, to be honest.
Yeah,
interesting. Okay. Rodrygo is our final player to mention. Obviously, he hasn't featured very much under Xabi Alonso in the Club World Cup. It keeps almost like every time the lineup's released, it's like Rodrygo's not in it, and that's a big thing. Obviously, there's huge rumours to Arsenal for him, but personally for him, he is been an unbelievable player for Real Madrid during his time so far. Won basically everything there is to win whilst playing for Real Madrid. Is playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. Do you think this is something that he wants to do in leaving, if he's now maybe not going to be quite fitting into this? It's almost like a three at the back, isn't it? Really,
kind of been using the right winger as a bit more of a
and even
functional.
The youngster, obviously the striker, whose name escapes me, Garcia, is basically featuring more than he has.
He's been banging the goals as well.
What do we think the future is for Rodrygo then? Do you think he personally would want to move? I think more that's the key thing here, because he seems to always love Real Madrid.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because like you said, in that system that Xabi Alonso's kind of been playing, that the right winger has been using Bellingham there, he's been using Valverde there, and Vinny Jr. kind of on the other side. So it's kind of seen more as a bit of more of a sacrificial kind of piece, I guess, in that front three, or someone who kind of drop into the midfield that allows Trent to kind of go on in the chess piece. Yeah, but then again, one thing that Rodrygo might look at is the fact that Bellingham's having quite big surgery after this tournament's done, and he's going to be out for apparently 3 to 4 months. So I think that probably frees up a little bit more game time for him then to come into that front line. But it's such a weird one, Rodrygo, because I do get the impression that he does want to kind of stay and fight for his place, but also it kind of got the idea as well at the start of the tournament that how many minutes that he got throughout the Club World Cup would then determine how he feels about that. And so far, again, it was the other night against Juve, wasn't it? He didn't even come off the bench. It's so weird, because I think you see him as a player that can probably go to a lot of teams in Europe and be the best attacker in a front line. I'm not saying that he necessarily would do that at Arsenal when you think about how consistent brilliant Saka is, obviously, but he would change Arsenal. It'd be an absolute game changer for them, 100%, and he would be a marquee player, starter week in, week out over there. So I think, if I was him, I would probably. It's kind of like know your worth a little bit, go and be go and be
Well,
a...
kind of needs his flowers as well, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Like, he is an exceptional player. This is someone who, okay, he's not got necessarily the scoring numbers of some of the Real Madrid guys, but that's normally because he's doing a lot of work for them and trying to help the side. And so I think, if there's a move for him where he can kind of become the guy and one of the standout names, and look, Real Madrid definitely would receive a fee. I think that would be worthy of that. There's talks of 90 million to get his services. But I think if he finally felt like, you know what, I want to be the guy now. I want to be one of the guys on the team sheet where people go, God, we've got to watch out for. And he is now. Like, in all truth, no manager's looking at him and just shrugging their shoulders.
I'd maybe give it another year if I was Rodrygo. I just think, I obviously, hasn't played much under Xabi Alonso so far, but I think there's something about like just seeing where this Real Madrid project goes. I would maybe just give it one. Like, he's still pretty young. I'd give it one season under Xabi Alonso. If it looks like Xabi Alonso is really building a dynasty here, and you've got a place in it, then I would be tempted to stay. If you give it 1 year under Xabi Alonso and it doesn't look like that, because as an amazing manager as Xabi Alonso is, and as an amazing squad as he's got, it's a real step up on anything that Xabi Alonso has done before.
Yeah.
Real Madrid have never, this is the most star-studded team they've built in quite some time. There's no it's a difficult project to manage. If there comes an opportunity, I don't think the opportunity is going to suddenly dry up for Rodrygo. Is basically what I'm saying. Maybe in a year's time, Bayern are still looking for an out-and-out left winger. Maybe Arsenal are still looking for that upgrade on Martinelli. The opportunities, I think, as a left winger will still be there. I'd maybe give it one year.
Yeah.
Okay then. Well, there we have it, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video. The boys' links will be down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.